Hey YouTube, Four Boys Garage here. We have the 2013 Polaris Sportsman 90 back in the garage. In an earlier video, we just did a chain replacement on this and talked a little bit about at least the weaknesses and vulnerabilities if you actually run these things hard as it relates to the chain and tensioner and whatnot. And in that video, we talked a little bit about wanting to do another video on our light mods that we've made to this, which at the time we were not making videos, so we didn't make a video of this, obviously. And at that time, it was very difficult to find any useful or helpful information on this. And it's something that when we had it in here for the chain, we kind of had the idea that, you know, hey, that could really be helpful on a lot of these youth quads. Really, they're all made, at least the big manufacturers, mostly seem to be made by Aeon, and that I know that applies to the Yamahas for certain. I can't say for certain about the Hondas and some of the other ones, but the Polaris, in this case, I thought I was buying a Polaris. Again, it's made by Aeon, which I believe is Taiwanese, which was very upsetting. I felt duped. I mean, it was almost $3,000 for this machine at that time to buy brand new. And in any case, they come with what is considered running lights. What I found in the forums is that the manufacturers just really don't want to even present these as a headlight. They want them to be simply a driving light for daytime driving, safety. I think you get greater visibility when you have a driving light on, is the way they consider it. They did not want them to be used for night driving on youth machines. The lighting is terrible. They pulse. They just seem to be completely underpowered. I was looking to upgrade them. I searched for bulbs. Ultimately decided that my biggest problem was the fact that they were just powered straight off the engine, and you couldn't turn them on off. And worse, they just pulsed so bad, especially at idle. And that was really annoying. I soon found that they're AC powered because this machine did not have, or they're just not attached to a rectifier, which actually converts from AC to DC voltage, the way I understand it. And so I looked into, buying all these things, converting things, and stumbled upon in a totally unrelated forum, just trying to learn about converting AC to DC. When it comes to bulbs, they actually don't care if it's AC or DC power. And I did an experiment and took one of the bulbs out, connected it to a battery, and it turned on. So immediately I made the decision just to wire up a switch to power, directly from the battery, and we could switch them on off when we wanted. And so obviously soon decided, if I'm going through all of that trouble, then I may as well add a light bar. So we added this little 7-inch light bar. It was all right around the same time. Again, we did this project years ago. Not long after this was brand new. So, I'm guessing maybe 2014, 2015-ish time frame. So we did all these together. We powered them off of a relay that is housed in the pod here, the headlight pod, which is fake, obviously. But we did a 2-position switch because I had read that, at least it was the opinion of many, that these little machines just don't put out a lot of power, and that they probably couldn't, add a lot of electrical load onto the power it does produce. I mean, it's really designed to simply run those driving lights and recharge the battery, and that's pretty much it. I've since decided that it probably is enough for that little light bar. They don't really use that much power. But at least the way it is now, position 1, I believe, runs the existing factory lights. Position 2 runs the light bar. It's a one or the other. I'm going to change it so that it will be one and the other, so that you can run them all at the same time. I don't know how exactly we'll choose to set that up. You know, whether it would be only the light bar or the light bar and the other lights also, or all the lights and maybe just the factory lights. Hard to say. Really irrelevant to this video. In this video, we just thought that we would do our best job at reviewing and going over exactly what we did here, because we know that others would like to do the same. I think the biggest and most helpful find is that, at the very least, if you'd like, you can power these factory lights right off of a fused switch from the battery, if you like. So you can totally take them off of the pulsing, I forget what it's called. Is it a stator on these? I don't even remember what it was. I didn't mess with any of that stuff. But in any case, switch it to just powering directly off the battery, which really stabilizes the light, makes it very consistent. You know, makes it a little brighter, especially at idle, but you know, they're still the same bulbs. They don't put out, you know, more wattage, more lumens, or anything of that nature. But it is more stable and constant and steady, which is itself a huge improvement. So we're gonna pop a few things apart. We just kind of wanted to give a little bit of a rundown of what this video was about, and we'll pop a few things off to expose and show kind of what we had done, yeah, I just give more up close information on what to do. I know that won't be quite as easy to follow, perhaps because we're not, you know, doing it and really, you know, doing it live or showing you the various steps. But I think that for anyone that would be doing a project like this, you're gonna have some idea of what you're doing before you start, I hope. At least some idea. But I think that we should be able to give enough information, at least, that it should help no matter what. So we're gonna pop a few things apart and we'll be right back. This extra screw is not quite as obvious when you're taking the pod apart, and it's just over the gas cap. So we wanted to make sure to point it out for anybody who may be doing this project. The more obvious screws on the sides. I made the mistake of gently tugging. Didn't do any harm, but I didn't realize that that screw was there, so we want to make sure to point it out. All right, for the biggest part of powering these, I didn't really care to find another way. I came directly off the battery with both the negative and a positive. This is our little fuse holder here that's powering actually both sets of lights. We ran up this left side of the machine. Obviously we kind of came down through there. Let me grab a light here. They all turn right there. Get you up in here. And I'm not sure if you can see right there where they kind of just follow the frame rail all along. Sort of turn up here. Just kind of follow that frame rail all the way up front. Found, you know, various parts of the frame and other wires and cables and whatnot that are factory mounted. You can see we've got it wrapped up right there. It's in black, but just the other things that we could secure it to on its way up. And we went into the light pod first. I'm not going to try to take any of these wires apart. I think anyone who's ever wired up a relay and there's all sorts of information out there on relays, but I did put a relay in here, mainly because I wanted this thing, being that it was a youth quad, to have a trigger wire that came off of the key, so that at least if they turned the machine off, the lights would also shut off, and we would have far less, if any, dead batteries. So on the ignition wires, which here's the pod laying here, there's the ignition. We just did a tap splice and came off of the brown and white. It's a brown wire with a white stripe as our trigger wire for the relay. And then the output from the relay obviously then is feeding our switch, which is again mounted here. And then there's two outputs from the switch for the 1 or 2 position. We had to cut away the old wiring from light. We had to cut away the old wiring that used to connect to, I guess it would be the stator. And we're probably gonna get destroyed if we're wrong on that, I'm sure. But in any case, to feed the factory lights off of our new wiring, which we've all got tucked in here, and we try to wrap it up to make it durable, watertight. We did use some spade connectors here, as you can see, for the light bar. I don't have the most faith in the world for these light bars, but I wanted to be able to at least not have to cut away wiring. We can just disconnect those spade connectors, mount up a new LED light bar, plug it in, and it's done. So I do feel like we would end up in a situation where that could be handy. But we were able to kind of just across these frame rails up top, zip tie everything up, keep it up off the ground, keep it up neat so it looked good. There's a little insight on the mounting setup that we used, and we'll pop the front cover off to get a better view. This is just from the back side here, but we use these rubberized clamps and some pieces of aluminum to make like an extension and bracket to actually mount the bar between these two rails. And while the front is off, or still on anyway, the factory grill has plastic in this entire location. You can see where we've cut it away. We just cut away the whole thing. We weren't really worried about trying to cut out just enough for the light bar. We didn't really care from any distance at all. You can't really tell any of this. It just looks like an open factory space and a little light bar tucked in there. But overall, it looks pretty good, we think, as far as just overall finish. But we'll pop this front off so that you get a good look of the way that we kind of bent up some aluminum stock from the hardware store to mount this thing. We got one 10 mil down low, two up top here, and this whole front covering comes off. What's not being held together by a 10mm bolt. Correction, there's also tucked up in here, ooh, if I can get on, there it is. Sorry, I'm trying to focus on the screen. A Phillips on each side connecting the front fender plastics to the front grille. All right, to mount this thing up, we sort of fabricated, if you consider it that, a couple of pieces of aluminum that we used, some rubberized, clamps to sort of attach the bar. And the main reason was the angle of this bar we had to come up with a way that we could use that bolt as like a pivot point to sort of control the height of the bar on each side and sort of get it tweaked where we wanted it just right. You know, loosen, retighten, you know, had to play around with that for a little bit, but this was really cheap. You know, this is just a piece of aluminum. We ended up spray painting it so that you couldn't see the shiny silver through the front. But obviously the clamp you can't see when the grill's on. But it was a cheap way, quick way, very straightforward way to attach to that bar and mount up this bar. This is was an Amazon bar. Let's see if we get the name on there. Kawell. Little like 7-inch bar. I'm sure some better options these days. The overall height of the bar was what was important to fit in that space. Obviously, you could further modify the plastics. I wanted something that really would look like a pretty factory finish, and I think it did that. But you know, that was how we kind of mounted it up. The again, the existing factory lights and most of the wiring is original up to the point where we have our switched wires coming down. But again, we may play with that again and change that up. But really, overall, especially if I'd had this video to just follow along and copy, this is a pretty easy project. It's really, I mean, I could see maybe more advanced people getting this done in a few hours, you know, having some idea of a plan already or a blueprint like this. You know, I had a lot of time just trying to figure out what to do. Obviously pivoted away from trying to upgrade the factory lights to putting in a light bar. And again, you know, kind of figuring out where to put things. That light pod seemed like a natural place. I was certain it had to be roomy in there, and it is. But, you know, again, running these factory lights off of a battery 12-volt DC switched wire was quite the find. So we're hoping that overall this helps somebody else maybe do the same thing. And again, this would apply, I know for certain, to the Yamahas, which are also made by the Aeon. But I mean, any of these youth quads really that it seemed like for a period of years they did come with a more legit headlight, and then it sort of went into safety mode and everyone was, you know, doing sort of these driving light setups. And I feel like many of us have been seeking some better way to do it, to mod it, and we felt like this turned out pretty good and thought that we should make a video on ours to show exactly what we did, and we've been happy with it. This has been running for I mean at least 5-6 years, I would say, that we've been using this. It had a period of time in between boys that it wasn't very much used, but it's back in use now, and that's why I had to put a chain on it. This 6-year-old is running this guy now, so it's held up. Even the light bar, to its credit, has held up. And the effect of DC on these light bulbs has seemed to have had, you know, no issues. We haven't had to replace a single bulb on here, and I wasn't sure, even though I discovered, you know, on a forum that, you know, that you could do that, and this was an electrical forum, not an ATV forum, but I didn't know what effect that might have on the light bulb, if any. I mean, but I'm, you know, glad that it hasn't. Don't want to be putting bulbs in here. So, you know, there's no fear of any issues with regard to that. So overall, a great upgrade for these little youth machines. And we hope that this was able to help, you know, somebody. I'm sure it will. So, hey, if this was helpful, help us out. What do you think I'd do, Kerr?
Make sure to like and subscribe, and if you want to stay updated on our videos, hit that bell button.
All right, 4 boys out. little light test here. So these are the factory lights and the light bar. And again, I think we're going to end up wiring this in a way that, let's back it up so that we can kind of show the light spread. Oh. We turn off the grab that one. Yeah, that's a pretty stark contrast between the two. We're going to go ahead and wire it up. I think that we can run them both at the same time, because I do think that the light bar doesn't quite get as wide as the headlights do from that middle position, being that they're at the far right and far left. They add a little bit of light spread to the right and left sides, but I think that the factory lights would unquestionably be drowned out by the light bar through the middle. But and actually, those things are so high in the air, they might not even put as much light on the ground as they could. Maybe with a rider. Nah, might get worse. Any case, again, we did set this up in a way that when the key's off, the lights are off. So that's the relay in the light pod, and we'll get back to it here.